Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my photo editing live stream where you can submit your images before the stream starts, and I'll edit them here for you live using DxO Photolab 9, and I'm on 9.6 right now. Whatever the latest version is, I think it's 9.6.1, and it's been working really well for me. And also, I am an affiliate for DxO, so if you'd like to give DxO a try, and there's a affiliate link down below you can download. And also I have a 15% discount code. So if you'd like to purchase DxO, you can apply that code RobTrek, and you get a nice little discount. But that said, the purpose of the stream is basically to show you the tools and editing workflow that I use in DxO. It is my primary editor of choice. As many of you know, I've been using it for years and years now. And I want to try to help you develop your own workflow and give you some ideas on the tools available and how I use them. And every couple of images, 2-3 images, I like to stop and answer any questions you might have about DxO, any of the tools I did or editing choices that I made. And this is not a critique, or I'm not judging the photos in any way. Like I said, I'm just going to edit them and make creative choices as if they were my own photo. So don't take anything the wrong way. In other words, it's just simply an editing stream, right? And it's good to see you, Tom and Jeff and Dan. Good to see you guys here, Larry. So without further ado, and the sound is good, thanks. I don't know how many times I've started a stream with no sound, right? But okay, let's get started. My fingers are cold again this morning. Give me a second. It's springtime is crazy here, right? We get these huge swings. Overnight it's really cold, and then day it gets kind of hot. Okay, let me pull up Photolab and we'll just get right into it here. Okay, and these are images that were submitted before the stream, and I got quite a few, so if there's time, if you submit one during the stream, I might be able to get to it, but probably get pushed to next week. But okay, let's go ahead and start here. And oh, one more thing. I'm just going to make the fonts a little bigger so you can see, the sliders and things. Okay. All right, that should be a little easier to see. All right, so we have some turkey vultures here on a mountain or cliff, whatever, with some, oh, I love all these cactuses around here. So basically, I'm not sure if they're airing out their wings to, catch the sun to get warm. I think that's what they're doing. And when I start an edit, I always think about the overall composition. So I think about straightening horizons or correcting, perspectives and keystoning. And then I also look at the balance of light and the exposure, and then white balance. So I try to look at all the global changes first and geometry, because that's going to have the biggest impact initially. And then I get into basically just doing local adjustments and making the creative choices from there. And this one here looks okay. It feels a little bit tilted to the right, so I may straighten the horizon just a tad. And then, so that's looking at and the next thing I do is I apply a basic preset. I posted my basic preset on my community tab. You can find it there. But basically applies optical corrections and denoising and a little bit of sharpening. And these are kind of the core DxO technologies, right? They're denoising and they're optics modules. and it does a really good job. So the question here is, do I do silhouette and just make everything dark here in the front and do something super creative, or do I try to do a more realistic shot and bring up the shadows and make it more natural like we would see with our eyes? So I'm just going to give that some thought while I look at the overall composition. I think the question is this bird here, because I could crop in tight and cut that bird out and just get the ones here. I kind of like that idea. So let me see how that looks first. Maybe even go vertical. Let's try 5x4 and see if that works. It kind of works. Maybe something about like that. Just keep them in the front and center. And I'm going to use this little square here in the box and center it right on that bird. Let's see where that takes me. Looks a little off. I guess I'll do this. And you know, when it comes to composition, I don't overthink it. I just use this rule of thirds grid and try to create a foreground, midground, background. I think that works. So I'm going to use a control line, which lets me mask by luminosity or by lighting and also by color. So I'm just going to tighten up the luminosity just a bit. Maybe a little of both, chroma and luma. So I don't want to touch the sky at this point. And let's see if we can just raise the shadows. And whenever I use selective tones, I like to keep this as straight a line as possible. I think that always looks the most natural. As opposed to, you know, doing something kind of wonky like that, right? Like where the lines are kind of out of place. It just doesn't look right. So let's try something about there. The birds are really backlit, pretty harsh. Let me just crank it up a lot and see. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to recover too much in the shadows there. Meaning the body of the birds here where the feathers are black. So I think I'll stop right about there. We'll go with that. And then I'm going to warm it up. Whenever I add light, like I did here, I added some exposure. I like to add a little bit of warmth on the white balance. And then I'm going to add some clear view and micro contrast just to kind of bring back some of the details. Like so. Okay. And then let's do the next one. This is pretty low hanging fruit, but we'll create a new mask. And we'll just work on the sky. Usually just some clear view does it. And a tiny bit of micro contrast and maybe just a bump in vibrance. Let me see if I warm that up too a little bit. If that, let's just go up a couple hundred Kelvin there. Okay. And then I'm going to just brush in a little bit of extra. I'm going to try and use the masking brush. I'm just going to brush in a little extra light along the feathers here. Oops, I overshot it a bit there. And if I hit the Alt key like this, it gives me a negative brush. So I'm just hitting the Alt key on my keyboard right now. So if I overbrush, I can just use the Alt key to kind of brush it back out, like so. And you'll also notice at the top that the tools change a little bit. I can adjust the flow and opacity. So there we go. So let me make that 100% actually. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going in here. Just brush off a little bit. Okay. A little bit right there. So let's gradually bring up the highlights here. Just to kind of exaggerate the light coming in. I think that looks pretty good. And then we'll just add a little extra warmth here, a couple hundred Kelvin maybe. And then I'm going to darken the foreground here a little bit and I'm going to put the dropper on one of the darker parts here. And just bring that in just a little bit to look a little bit more in line with the shadows on the vultures there. Move this up. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick comparison here. Okay, and then I go back to the feathers. It's a little bit strong. Just back that off a bit. I think this bird needs a little more than the rest, so I'm going to do a separate brush. Just add a tiny bit more. Okay. Now let me bring out some of the green on these cactuses. So I might go back. Let's make a new mask. I'll use the auto masking brush. And let's just add a little bit of, see if we can just bring those up a tiny bit. And add a little vibrancy. And let's just use the opacity to just back it off a little bit. Okay, I think I'll call it there. So I'm going to export this. Go back to the same folder and export as sRGB, JPEG. All right, very good. Okay, and the first one always takes a little bit of extra time. Let me pull up the bar here. Yeah, the first one is, yeah, it always takes longer. I'm not sure why, but then the rest of them will go a lot faster, anywhere from 4 seconds to about 8 or 9 seconds, depending how many edits and masks that I have. So let's go ahead and compare it now. Oops, oh, I got to reset it. There we go. Okay, so there's my edit. I thought just a little tighter crop, I think, focuses more on just the most interesting part of the photo. Which to me where the cactus is, I like cactuses, and then the birds themselves. But the birds, was mainly about the highlights and the wingtips, and that's all I really tried to bring out because the shadows are pretty much crushed to black, and trying to bring back any details there would be futile. But okay, I think that worked out pretty well. And we can kind of punch in and look a little closer. It's a little spot here. I'm not sure what that is. I could have brushed that out. And there's a bug flying. It's probably a bug. That's probably what it is. But yeah, okay, very good. All right, that was from Larry. Thank you, Larry, for bringing that one. And then we have one here from William. And I'm hitting the F9 key to bring the panels in and out like this. Just F9 on my keyboard. Okay, let's see. We have, looks like a touristy helicopter here. Or could be a commercial flight. Let's go ahead and do a basic preset. Oops, let's pick this one. And this is just a bit overexposed. So, I can see it here. There's 2 stops of extra exposure. So I think you were trying to make sure we got the details here in the bottom of the helicopter. Let me try to... let me just try a little clear view first. I'm just going to do that globally. And the white balance is a little bit cool. So I'm just going to use the eyedropper. I'm just doing very big changes here first. I'm assuming the helicopter is white. So we'll just give that. Let's just back this off a little bit. And now I can do some local adjustments. I don't think the sky has much hope of recovering anything. Well, let's see if there's anything Clearview can bring out. Yeah, not really. It looks like it's just a plain gray overcast day or hazy day. But I do want to cool it off a little bit, so I'm going to do that. So I still have my control line there. Just going to cool it off. Just a bit. We'll bring it down. We'll make the lumen mask even tighter. Okay. Maybe not that much. 55. All right, now let's, whenever I see windows or glass, I always try to emphasize those. So let me see if the AI mask will just pick out the windows. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to hit the shift key and grab the next one, the next one. And so you can see under mask 2, I have 7 AI masks for the 7 windows. I'm just going to add some clear view and micro contrast. Okay, the helicopter itself, I think we're all good. Maybe just add a tiny bit of light. We'll just do a tiny bit of light painting. Just add a little bit here. because it's not a bird, but these would be effectively be the talons or the feet of the bird. And we've already kind of done the eyes, right, with the windows. Maybe we'll do here. And I'm just going to try to add some speculars by pushing the highlights and adding micro contrast. And this looks like a giant, what the heck is that? I don't know. Let's add a little bit here. And a little bit here. And maybe a spot here. Just subtle changes wherever I see any kind of bare metal or shiny parts. Okay, I think I'll call it there. So let's go ahead and export that. And we'll see how long this one takes. Hopefully it'll be more in line with what I'm used to. Yeah, closer to 9 or 10 seconds. That's good. So we'll go ahead and reset it. And just do a side by side there. Okay, so not much to do there. Composition-wise, it's just front and center, right? So we don't have to apply any kind of geometry or anything. And essentially all I needed to do was just add a little contrast, right? So if we do a slider, we can kind of come into the fine details. Whoops, I meant to do this. And I think, again, DxO did an excellent job there. We can count the rivets if we want. Not that we need to be rivet counters when we do aircraft, right? You want to think about the composition and the action and what is the craft doing. But if you want to get the details out, DxO is really good at it. All right, let's see. Let's try this one here from Surge. Okay. Oh, this one I'm used to seeing from Surge over the years is Woodland. So I think these are bluebells potentially, because it's that time of year. I'm going to do a bluebell photo walk this weekend, actually. Okay, so the challenge with Woodland is trying to find some kind of forms or some cohesive geometry in this basically this chaos or web of branches. And let me check one more thing. I forgot to check. Bring up the film roll here. I need to download this optics module. So whenever you see a down arrow here, that means there's an optics module available that hasn't been downloaded yet. And you'll only see this when you first initially start editing with Photolab. And it remembers, what lenses and cameras you use. So ideally, you will see this less and less until you buy another new lens or camera. But, being in a live stream, I get a lot of these all the time. But it's not a common thing. It only really happens initially when you get Photolab or get started with Photolab. Okay, let's go back to editing here. So I'm seeing a patch here. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to try and minimize the browns and reds and yellows and emphasize the greens and the purples here. And I think the best way to do that is with light. And there's a slight shift tilt here, I think, as well. I mean, this could be on a hill and everything's fine and level, but to my eye, it just looks like it's just a little bit off here. Oh, let me apply my basic preset first. There we go. Let's do that first, and then let's do just a little bit of a tilt. And because I have this auto cropping on, you know, as I'm tilting it, it'll crop in versus, you know, if I turn that off. I think we're good there. So I'm going to just start with the yellows and reds here. I'm not sure if I do it with by color, if that makes sense, but let me just drop. Yeah, it's mostly oranges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feather this in a little bit this way and push it and just bring the luminance down. Not too much, because then it looks, you know, it looks wonky, right? So, because this area in here is not, yeah, that's very yellow. Oh, let me start over. I'm going to push this more and push this a little bit. And just bring this down just a tad. Bring the saturation. Yeah, let's bring that down just a bit for now. All right. Now let's go to some local adjustments. I'm going to use I'm going to try a control line again. I'm going to put the dropper again here on mostly the reds or oranges and yellows. I'm just dragging the eyedropper around to get the masking that I think is going to work best. Because, you know, the green grass and stuff has a lot of yellows in it too, and I don't want to touch those. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. And let's just use the sliders to bring those in more. Again, I'm just keeping a straight line. That's a bit too much, right about there, maybe. Okay. I think that works. All right, good. So let's see if we can do something with the grass and the leaves. Problem is the yellows over, oops, my bad. Wrong eyedropper. I wanted to come down here. My problem is a lot of times the reds or the greens have a lot of yellow in them. Let me just point around here and see where we're at. Oh, there's a lot of blues. But you see what I mean about the yellows? So what I'm going to do is, now that I have kind of a sample of different areas I want to emphasize, I'm going to de-emphasize the colors I don't want to saturate. And since we did run into some blues, I'm going to just feather into that. And let's bring up the saturation a bit, like so. And bring the luminance down a bit. Okay. Very good. Go back to a more, let me just get a feel for where we're at. I just want to get a feel for the lights and darks, so I'm underexposing it. Okay. So that gives me an idea of what I want to darken even more. So I'm going to go to the local. I'm just going to use a brush, and I'm going to change the flow. Yeah, let's make a new mask. Let's do 20%. Because what I want to do is I just kind of want to brush in. Actually, let me use a control point instead. Let's make a new mask. And we're going to tighten up the chroma. I'm not sure, a brush or a control point, but let's just pull it. Just want to kind of just create a little more depth. So I'm doing my best to drop the control points on sort of the greens and not the yellows. But like I said, there's a lot of overlap between the greens and yellows. Okay. So that's too much. Let's make this one a bit bigger. Okay, good. Then I'm going to work with the, let me work with these sort of purple colors. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to drop on the most purple one I see, maybe this one. Yeah. Okay, good. Let me just get a quick. Okay, that's good. All right, now that I kind of see where everything is, or the depth of the scene, now I can, it's kind of backwards, but now I can kind of think about the composition a little bit. So I'm thinking I don't really need the sky up here. And this tree is a little bit heavy in the scene. So I may be able to get rid of that tree altogether. It's a little bit too much foreground. And we'll come in here. Let's see if that works. It's a little distracting, this corner. What I might do is just brush that out. So I'm just going to use this healing brush. Maybe we'll try a clone. I'll just grab this corner and just move it over here. That's too dark. Let's come up here. I just want to kind of match, you know, what I'm seeing in the rest of the scene. Okay, that looks better. With that in mind, can I push this out a little bit more? Not really. Come back in. I think right about there. So I'm trying to put this shorter tree here, and this third, and then I have this foreground, kind of mid-ground, and then this is not a background, but it's more of a framing. So I'm creating the depth really using the luminance or lighting. All right, let's do one more thing on a global side. I wonder if I just pull this in a little bit, maybe pull some micro contrast off. Let me see where we're at. Yeah. May have overdone it just a bit on the trees. So let me go back to my control line. I'm just seeing a little bit of muddiness because I kind of overdid it here. Okay, that's better. Go back to this mask. Maybe just pull it in just a tad more. And all right. Good, 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 good. That might be it. So we'll export that. And we'll compare. Actually, I don't think I need to export anymore, but okay, so here's the original on the left. And then, I'm sorry, this is the original on the right. And here's my edit on the left. Not great. Basically a little crop and some saturation, it looks like. But I tried to bring some depth by darkening the background a little bit. Now I think this image would do. Let me bring my edits back. This image might do well using. You need to have Film Pack installed to do this, but I think just a little bit of soft focus and then a little bit more pull. Just give it a more enchanted look. But Film Pack has this soft focus type thing built into it. It's a little bit difficult to do it without Film Pack, but it can be done. I'll have to show you how to do that at some other time. I'm still working on that. But now we can compare it to. So that's the original. There's my edit. I think this is what I actually end up having when I'm done. So again, just trying to emphasize the depth here and declutter a little bit by softening the fine details with the soft focus. All right, let's go to, whoops. Let's go to the next one, and then I'm going to try and answer some questions. I saw a lot of questions come up while I was editing. Where's my... There we go. All right. So Roger's come in this side toward screen. Good to see you guys. Brass Boy says, bring up the shadow. Oh, so that's when we were working on the birds. Roger says, Cole Tomlin was a guest presenter at my photo club and says that the rule of thirds is overrated. He many times has his images centered. I think he has a good point. Yeah, I do that a lot with my wildlife photos. And like this flower photo I just saw, clearly, you know, it's filled the frame. If you can fill the frame with the subject, then yeah, rule of thirds doesn't make much sense. And centering is, you know, there's a couple of ways to do it, right? Front and center or off center. But I don't use rule of thirds to off center the subject. My primary goal with the rule of thirds is to balance the image and make it feel more three-dimensional in terms of depth, right? So, you know, photographs are basically broken down into just the lighting, foreground, midground, background, and the subject matter. What's the content, you know? And so I use the rule of thirds primarily to help me break it into ways that I can show depth in the photo. And then the subject, whether it's off center or in the center, it's going to depend on what the subject is. If it's a bird or like the helicopter we did, or this flower we're about to do, clearly front and center makes sense, and rule of thirds doesn't apply. And I wouldn't be able to use rule of thirds on this next image. So, you know, I think at this point, calling it overrated is it's not really a fair statement. It depends on how you use it. I think the way that I use it is, you know, maybe underrated, because whenever I hear rule of thirds, you always talk about putting the subject on one of the, you know, one of the crosshairs, right, in the rule of thirds box. That in of itself is overrated, but it's useful for advertising type work where you want to leave room for fonts and text and things. It makes a lot more sense in that context. But yeah, for regular photography, I agree in that using the rule of thirds and the crosshairs to me is, yeah, a little bit overrated. That's not, you know, you don't just throw it in there and have a better image, right? You're trying to create a balance, or, you know, something that looks more natural in the scene, like the subject is looking into the scene or looking out of the scene, and putting them into one of the quadrants helps you still have some space around the subject, some negative space potentially, without cramming them up to the edge. But these are all creative choices. So, but yeah, I wasn't there, so I would have loved to heard his total, like his explanation, you know, if any. But that's how I would explain rule of thirds: is don't use it simply for, you know, don't just put something in one of the crosshairs and then expect it to be a better image. That's not the case. And good morning, Kevin. Good to see you. Wow, it's been a while, Kevin. And Adam says, I like the way you edit. You don't run to the add a sky when there's none by using Luminar. There's a place for that, but there isn't always a need for that. Yes, I agree. And primarily because DxO doesn't have a add sky option. I try to use only what's available in the basic DxO Photolab that comes with it, right? Like what I just did with the blurring or softening doesn't come with DxO. You have to get film pack, and I rarely do that, but I think that photo needed it. And Glenn, good to see you. And Glenn says, question off track. Rob said you have Loop Deck. Do you use it for Photolab editing? I do not. I do not. I've just kind of developed muscle memory for uh, using my mouse and keyboard, and I can do that no matter what computer I go on to, right? And hi Rob, how do you set DxO sharpen without halos? A preset? No, there's not a preset. The halos are created basically because you have. Okay, sorry about that. Battery went out. When did the sound go out? You can give me a feel for when it went out. Yeah, I gotta pay attention to that. Yeah, wired mic. Maybe. Maybe I'll switch to a boom mic instead, right? That's plugged in all the time. Okay. When let me know when the sound went out, and then I'll try and pick up from there. I remember I was talking about rule of thirds, and then I probably lost the sound somewhere around about sharpening with halos is my guess. Okay, so yeah, basically the halo thing is just sharpening of pixels, right? By brightening the bright pixels, making the bright pixels brighter and the dark pixels darker. That's all sharpening is. And it depends on the radius, right? Depending on how many pixels at a time are you brightening and darkening. And DxO introduced a feathering tool in the AI selection tool that helps mitigate some of that by feathering the brightness and the darkness between bright and dark pixels. So you just have to be conscious, right, of that. But no, there's always going to be haloing if you over sharpen. So you just have to mitigate that the best you can. Something like clear view tries to brighten and darken pixels in a very, a lot of pixels at a time. Whereas unsharp mask is does two things. It brightens and darkens pixels, but you can also select the radius of the number of pixels or subpixels. So yeah, it's just a little bit of practice to get there's no preset, right? Okay, so let's go to the next image. Sorry, that explanation is not great. It's easier to maybe demonstrate it. This is not an ideal image to demonstrate haloing, because there's not really a strong, well, there's a little bit of a contrast here. We might be able to show it, but first let's just edit this image. So I'm going to apply basic preset, and let's what I might do is just sort of darken the whole background and make it black. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the AI tool and see if it'll select the whole flower. Yeah, so we'll do that, and then I'm going to invert it and just create a black background. Maybe it doesn't need to be completely black. I kind of like a little bit of a, just a little bit showing there. See how that is? Yeah. That's good. I don't want to make it completely black. I like the little bit of stem and leaves there. Okay, let's select the flower again. And I'm just going to add some micro contrast to bring out the speculars a bit. Maybe a little bit of clear view for the same effect. Now I'll push the highlights and midtones. Just add some contrast. And then let me go back to the colors. Let me pick out the greens. Push this in a little bit. And I'm going to select the green. There's a little bit of green right in here. I'm just going to shift that a little bit more yellow. Just a tad. Go back here. Let's just do the global changes now. I think that's it. Very, very subtle change there. So we'll just put those side by side. So again, basically all I did was add contrast and de-emphasize the greens in the flower itself. But I like the very subtle green stripes in the background here of this flower. But you saw what it kind of looked like when it was all black before, right? But let me take a quick look and see if I can make this halo a bit. Let me go to the sharpening. This is not a good example. But you can see as I increase the number of pixels, the radius, that's when you start to see a little bit of haloing here, right? Especially like right here. But every image is a little bit different. So you want to just measure this. So I always like to increase intensity first before I do radius if I'm working on sharpening. And then I'll gradually bring up the radius, because if I add too much radius, that's when you start to get the haloing, because you're brightening and darkening several pixels at a time side by side. And that's what causes the haloing in sharpening. Same thing goes for this. You can see I have this cranked all the way up in my preset. This is not as bad though. The lens sharpness optimization is more based on their optics module, and that's a more intelligent way of sharpening. And this is one of the, like I said, one of the core technologies of DxO. So even though I have these cranked all the way up, you don't really see any haloing here. You can in other images because you know, this, like I said, this is not a great example because there's not a huge difference between these two areas here, right? Because this is yellow, the brightness is about the same. So the haloing is not going to show up quite as much. And then when I go back here, okay, so the argument here is we have very bright, very dark, very different colors. But the problem here is that it's blurry already. It's already kind of feathered naturally. So, you know, I can create a halo, but it takes a little bit more work to make a halo show here because it's already a bit feathered naturally because it's out of focus. So I hope that makes sense. Adds a little context to what I was trying to explain so you can see it visually. But okay, let's go to the next one. And this one, this is a thumbnail of something, so I guess I won't be able to edit that. It's too small. Sorry about that. Who sent that one? I don't even see a name here. That might be something I did by accident. Okay, let's see. This one here. Let's apply a preset. And so we have a lot of haze in this image. It's a very hazy image, but I like, there's a little bit of a separation of colors here and here, but it's basically monochrome. Basically just have browns and whites and a little bit, I mean, these greens don't really count. Just do a quick, I'm just gonna do a quick punch on saturation and see. Yeah, that might do the trick. Because the other option is maybe to look at this as a monochrome. I kind of like the monochrome look a little better. Let me reset. Let me look at the color again. The color would definitely be more challenging. I think I'll go black and white on this one. So let me apply a basic preset. Go to black and white. We'll do a very contrasty one. So we're going to push the highlights and midtones. Just pull that, maybe add some clear view, some micro contrast. and I already, the horizon is straight. Everything looks straight in terms of the geometry. So all I have to do is crop, really. I don't have to fix any but if there was any geometric corrections I needed to, I would have done that first. But I think all I have to do is crop this image. Let me do a control line on the sky, see if I can bring out just a little bit more with clear view. Just a little bit. And then we'll use the AI mask and try and select the water. It's a little bit in here. Okay. Do the same thing there, some clear view, but let's make it darker. Like so. And you can see the haloing down here, right? Between the bushes and the water, because I cranked up the clear view. So just watch out for that. That can also cause haloing. It's not sharpening per se, but it is haloing this for the exact same reason. It's not feathering too well. I suppose I could try and feather it a little bit so there's less, but I don't think I need to worry about it too much for this image because I'm going to crop that out anyway. Let me go ahead and I'm going to make a new mask. I'm going to use my auto selection brush. I'm just going to go along the coastline here. Maybe not here. Okay. And let's just emphasize the rocks there a little bit. Okay. And we'll do the same thing with the train. These little oil tankers. I just want to highlight the speculars here. How about here? A little bit there. I could probably AI mask that whole structure, but I just want it to be, a little more selective. Okay. All right, now let's do a little bit for the trees. I'm just going to use a control mask. I tighten up the luma just a little bit. And just gradually brighten those up a bit. Again, I just want to create some depth and dimension to the image. That might be a little bit too strong for this area. I might have to do a separate mask for that. Maybe not. Yeah, let me do a separate mask for those. But I do want to kind of just bring out a little bit here and there. Okay, let me do a new control mask. I'll do a little bit less there. A little tighter on the chroma this time. Okay. All right, now, let me, now that I kind of have the lighting, let me think about the composition here. Maybe a 16 by 9. Maybe even wider. Okay, I think I'll call it there. So let's just do a side by side. So here's the original on the left. And yeah, I just decided to go black and white because the colors are so muted already that if I tried to saturate them, I think it would look a little bit too unnatural. And I like very punchy images. You know, personal preference, but I like very punchy, contrasty images, very saturated images. And I do tend to exaggerate that a little bit in the streams just to kind of demonstrate a little better. But I like how that came out, and I think the 16 by 7 crop works really well because there's just a lot of negative space here and down here that just don't add anything. If there was a ship or a boat or something in this area, I might keep it, but there's nothing really there. So I'll just go to a split view, and we can check the fine details. If this was an animal like a bird or some other kind of furry animal, I would spend a little more time with the sharpening just to bring out the fine feather details. But when it comes to architecture and things like this, I don't really tend to do that too often. Unless there's brick or stonework, you know, that we can bring out. But I think that came out really nice. All right. Let's go to the next one here. And let me check the DxO optics modules. Okay, we're good there. So this needs a little bit of, let's apply basic preset, but we need some perspective corrections here. Let's see if the auto does it. Auto gets us there a little bit. This tip of the flag is a little distracting. It'd be nice to get that in the frame. But we do need to straighten this horizon a bit. Let me just use this tool. I want this to be straight. So maybe, whoops, what happened there? Let me reset that. Oh, sorry. Let me back out. You can keep adding lines. That's what I was doing by accident. So I'm going to zoom in. This brickwork's not very straight. But we'll just go corner to corner. Here. Because you can see it bows a little bit there. It's bowing a little bit in the center. And that could be just an optical correction that's just a little bit off. But we'll leave it. Okay. All right. I'm gonna crop that flag out a little bit. I might even just come into this. And I'm just looking at the rule of thirds. I'm trying to get this in that third there. Just to balance it a little bit. Need a slight. I'm kind of undoing the line I just drew. Okay. What lens is this? This lens is not in the database. That's why there's distortion. The optics module didn't. So that's why I'm getting this very slight bowing. And it looks like this I'm not sure is actually the street being curving, or if this should not be curved though. This area here, I should try and fix that manually. Not sure I can though. Might be pin cushion. Let's just add a little bit there. Okay. Composition wise, I think that's a bit too tight there. I'm going to back off this auto perspective a little bit because it's just making a little bit wonky to me. I think that's good. All right. Once I'm committed to the geometry, I have to be just debating if I should include this side of the arc or if that's part of what's making it look wonky. No, I gotta include it. I think I'll go right there. Okay, I'm gonna just commit to this composition. I'm gonna try auto lighting here, or smart lighting. It didn't do much. All right, let's work on the windows. So this one, this one, this one. Add some clear view, micro contrast. You brighten those up a bit too. Let's add this door. Whenever I do architecture, you know, the front door is really critical for me. Whenever I take a picture of a building, I always look for the entrance. Okay. Now let's just focus on the reds here. So I'm going to grab this red. Let's see how different it is from this one. It's pretty much the same. And then this is more orangey. So let's go back to this red and just pull it in. I want to do the oranges separately. We'll just give that a little punch and a little luminance. Might have to brighten this up separately. Okay. And then let's go over here. Let's give it a tiny bit there. Now white balance is just a little bit off. And this is a, is this a JPEG? Oh, this is a JPEG. Okay. So I'm just running, I'm going to have a little bit less flexibility with everything, colors and lighting. I think we're okay. What if I go down here? Yeah, white balance is going to be a little rough on a JPEG. So what I might do is, let me go back to all colors. We'll just desaturate this a bit. I might apply a LUT later. So let's select this newspaper box here and just brighten that up a bit. Pull the highlights a little. And then let's work on this van a little bit, or I'm sorry, this truck. I'm gonna add some speculars to the headlights and maybe the grill. I might have to do that with, let me see if the AI mask will grab it. Kind of. Let's try that. Hold on. This mask. Let me do a separate one for that. Okay, and let's grab the windows. think that's all I need to do on the truck. Except maybe here. I'm just gonna just do a little negative here. Let me see if I can brush. I do submask and brush. Just do a little bit of negative. Let's do the flow. And just, did that do it? Okay. Not sure that negative brush worked or not. Let me, oh, it did. Okay. Yeah, it did a little bit. All right, good. And then just a little bit here. Okay. And then just a couple other quick touches on the trees, maybe. Okay. I'm going to use the AI mask. Let's see if we can select the street. Almost. Yep, right there. We'll just bring that in a bit. Then let me select this gas station and bring in some micro contrast. Because this is where I want to bring out a little bit of more texture. Okay. Now one other thing I want to experiment with are the LUTs. These are included in DxO. Let's try. These black and whites look really good, but I was working with color, so I'm going to stick with it. I think I like that first one the best. That looks pretty good too. I kind of like this one and dusk. I'm gonna go with dusk, and then I'm just gonna push the shadows a bit. All right, let's do a side by side. So, you know, not having the optics module for this particular lens, I had to manually correct for it a little bit, and we're not quite centered with this station in terms of, you know, the camera's kind of tilted. If you're looking at it from the top down, the camera's kind of tilted this way a little bit. I mean, it looks like you got it perfectly level, right? Like it's level this way, and pitch looks really good. But the problem is that it's kind of tilted this way on this axis, whatever that's called, the yaw or whatever. So that's why I was struggling a little bit with the geometry. And you can tell because if you look at this gap between the column here, and there's no gap on this column here. So when you're trying to line up your architecture and position your camera, you know, if you're doing this handheld, it's a little tricky, but just be conscious of, you know, gaps and perspective and keystoning and all of that when you're doing any kind of building or architecture. At least for me, that's, you know, I just naturally lean to that. But yeah, here's the original image. And I applied a little bit of a LUT to give it a kind of an old-timey feel. I was a little torn about keeping the entire building, but because of this perspective being a little bit off, I decided not to keep this side because of this gap. And that, like I said, that's a very personal, subjective choice, but I just like symmetry, and this was not symmetrical. And then you know, this gas is a nice accent, but I think that LUT looks really good on this. I like how that came out. And then I increased the micro contrast so you could see more textures in the brick and stuff. And that's it. All right, let's do one more. And this one needs an optics module. Okay. All right, so here we have a landscape. Looks like maybe some, oh, that's ice. Wow, it's making me feel colder than I am. I don't know why I'm so cold this morning. But this side is, you know, this is a depth of field issue. Oh, it's a full frame at a 70 millimeters, that's why. And you're shooting basically wide open. So I'm gonna just ignore this left side. I don't know. Let me apply a basic preset first. I need to crop this before I start working on it. Mm. I don't know if just right in here would be enough. I'm not getting... Not feeling this composition here. Maybe something more like this. So what I'm looking at are the trees in the background. I just want to try and bring out some of the details there. There's a nice little gap right here and here that I can center on. If I'm not getting a good balance. So maybe I can put the reflection and this tree in the center. I'm going to go with this. So let's make the water darker. And I'm going to just feather that a bit. Let's give it a little cooler touch. Right there. And then let's make a new mask. We'll select the foliage there. Okay. Then there are some nice reds in there too. Right about here. Those are more orange. Spill that. Then how about up here? This is more yellow. Oops. Okay. Okay, how about these greens? So a little bit there. Then let me get the shoreline here. I think a masking brush might be better. So new mask. Okay. All right. And then maybe a little bit in the sky. We'll just use a basic control line. Maybe shift it a little bluer. And then I'm going to soften it. Maybe with micro contrast. Let's pull that back. Just regular contrast. No, none of that. All right. I think it's just a little bit bright. I'm going to spot out. Just use a control point and tighten up the luma. Make sure I grab sort of the darker areas. Okay. And I'm just going to use a regular brush. Let's make a new mask. I'm just going to temper the highlights a bit here and there. Let's do it maybe in a vertical way. And I got my flow at 20%, so I'm not doing it too harshly. I just want to separate this tree line a little bit. Again, just to make some depth. Okay. White balance is okay. Just a tad cooler, maybe. If I go a little warmer. No, I think just a tad cooler. Okay. Call it there. So for me, when I do landscapes, I like everything to be in focus, generally speaking, and this side was blurry, right? If we look at it. So it just kind of becomes a distraction. And then this just unbalances the image for me, because it's just kind of sticking into the side here. But I like the center here because you can see some depth already, right? How it kind of steps back into the background. And I like the trees. You know, you can see kind of the tree trunks here and there. So I just tried to emphasize that, and then I saw a tiny bit of color. So I just saturated those. And I just saw a quick question from Glenn about why is vibrancy grayed out? That's because I'm selecting. So if it was on this image here, let me bring back the so this was grayed out. I think when I select an individual color, if that's what, yeah, it's because I selected an individual color. So you can only work with saturation on individual colors. But when you're working with it, you know, whenever you use the eyedropper tool, if you select the colors this way, you know, same thing, right? The vibrancy is grayed out. It's only when you select all colors in the channel that you have the vibrancy. But anytime you select an individual color with the dropper or this, you can only work with saturation. All right, and there's a reason for behind that. I would have trouble articulating that, but that's why it was grayed out, because I selected an individual color. And then this side towards screen asks, what is your take on DNG being the raw image standard? I don't know, it's fine. Doesn't matter to me. I mean, every image editor supports every raw format. It would certainly make things easier for software developers, but there's so much there's a lot of proprietary information in the raw format, the native raw format. For example, like the exact focus point, I believe is a oh my God, say that 10 times fast. But yeah, there's like the focus point and other information in the raw file that DNG format just doesn't have a space for, right? That information. DNG has a lot of information. It may even include focus point. I'm not sure. I did look at the DNG spec once, years ago, but I'm fine with either way. Whatever they want to do. Okay, let's go to the next one. So, sorry, I need to get the optics module first. I mean, DNG in of itself is not. It's supposed to be standard if you follow the exact spec from Adobe, but when a company creates a DNG, for example, my Pentax monochrome, yeah, I can save as DNG, right? But DxO Photolab can't open up the Pentax DNG file because it's not supported. The sensor's not supported. So they have to create a demosaicing algorithm specifically for the sensor. So even though we go to a DNG standard format, I don't know that it would make it that much easier for software companies to create editing software based on that format, because every sensor is different. And if you want to extrapolate the very best data from a raw image, you have to create a demosaicing program specific to that sensor. And that's what DxO has done. They have, and everybody, Lightroom, everybody has their own demosaicing software or algorithm. And like I said, I don't know that going to a DNG standard format would make that any easier for anyone. Anyway, just my 2 cents. Okay. So we have a nice close-up shot here. It almost feels like this has been edited already, because the saturation of this flower is quite a bit higher than the saturation of everything else in the image. But it says raw here. So I don't know. The color science of the sensor, I guess. Anyway, this will be pretty straightforward, I think. So let's apply basic preset. And I like the wide format, but I may just come in a little bit tighter. Just on the bottom here. Just to kind of balance the spacing all the way around. And then maybe just a couple global changes. That's a little bit too extreme. Why is there clear view there? Okay. What preset did I apply? Let me make sure I got the right preset. I might have selected high res by mistake. Yeah, I did. All right, so I'm working on a preset for Olympus OM System high res shot. raw images. So, because they have to be processed a little bit differently. And now let's select this flower. Oops. And I'll just brighten this back up. And let's make a new mask. I'm going to select the flower again. Let's invert it. And I want to bring up the saturation of the background because it really feels like it feels undersaturated to me. And it, like I said, just a preference. I like very punchy, contrasty images. I think globally what I might do is desaturate until it feels about right. Okay. And then let's just add a vignette. So the vignette, if you don't have Film Pack installed, you just create a control point and then set your, whoops, not the opacity, I'm sorry, set the chroma and luma to 0, invert it. And then I like to use the sliders to try to create a more natural looking vignette. And let's just brighten the image up overall. It just feels a little bit dark. Okay. I think that works. And for this one, maybe we can check the fine details here. Let's go back to the sharpening or detail panel. And just add a little bit of crispiness there. All right. So we can do a side by side. So just a little bit of a crop. I mean, we can crop in a little tighter from here if we want to. But I think it looks fine the way it is. So again, just basically saturation and contrast, right? And that's all this image needed. Otherwise, it's pretty nice shot. Pretty nice, good catch. It's almost like the flower was just dropped on top of this. I just can't imagine it's growing through all of this dead grass, but maybe. Oh, this side towards green says it was my new 40mm lens, which I wish I had before. Yeah, that's a nice one. I'm trying to think. No, I bought the 35 macro lens, but I hear the 40's really, it's the 40's kind of the pancake one, right, for your Pentax. I almost went for that, but I wanted to have a macro lens, so I went with the 35 f2.8 on my Pentax. All right, let's see what we have here. This is looks like a straight out of camera JPEG. Do we have the optics module? We don't need that. Oh, it's a TIFF, because this is really, raw files aren't normally this rich in color. This is already pretty well saturated. I don't normally, and this is the Home 1 Mark II, so I'm pretty familiar with the feel of a raw image from OM system cameras and Olympus. It feels like it's already been edited slightly or being converted to TIFF changes the colors a bit too, depending what color profile you use to export. But I think with this, let's see. Let's just apply a basic preset, which is not going to do much. Let me go over to the colors. I'm going to desaturate a bit. Maybe about there. We need a little bit of a perspective correction. Just a tiny bit. But let me do some, let me do a control line. I'm just going to select the darkest areas here. And let's just make it even more contrasty. I wonder, let me make a submask and select, well, I don't want to select people. I just want this one person. Select that, hole punch them. There we go. So basically what I did is I hole punched her out of the control line mask. Because if I hide this, you can see her hair gets almost black. So I just used the AI mask to kind of pull her back out of the background. I could even, it'll be more obvious if I just blur the background like this. Let me just blur the darker areas, and then I think that's good there. Not sure what, I mean, the image was pretty much baked already. But I don't think I need any of these other people in the scene. Or this hot spot up here. We'll just put her. Now this time I'm using the rule of thirds, right? I'm just putting her right on the crosshairs. But I'm going to try and be conscious of the spacing too. I think that works right there. We'll just add a tiny bit of light to the face. So just push the midtones a bit. And maybe a little bit of tempering of the highlights. Let me go back to this mask. We'll need a new one. Let's make a new control line for the highlights. So I'm going to drop this on the brighter parts and just pull those in a bit. Okay. And some micro contrast. This is a little bit too dark now. Let me add a submask and erase that a little bit. I'll just use a brush. Okay, good. I need to just add a little bit more. Maybe less contrast. That'll do it. Just a little bit light here. And a little bit of warmth. Oh, I can't do it. Spread that just a bit. Okay. And yeah, just a bit there. And we'll go back here. Oops. I'm just trying to create a little bit of glow right where she's looking. And then let's add a little vignette to emphasize that. Mm. I feel like okay. We need this to be all right, I'm gonna call it there. So it's a little bit, the yellow's too strong. Hold on. Let me go back to that. I think it was this mask. Let's just desaturate that a bit. Okay. All right, so there's the original on the left. Like I said, it feels like it's already been edited some because it's already pretty well saturated with good contrast, which is not typical of a raw image. So I just desaturated a bit overall and then tried to maintain the saturation and glow right in here off this lamp onto her. And composition wise, yeah, all of this is distracting. This guy, this other girl, this lamp. And this lamp was creating quite a bit of contrast onto the blouse or dress here. So I just I lowered the contrast in this area here just to try to soften that a bit. But anyway, hopefully hopefully that works out. And if I recall, Detlef, you bought me a coffee for this edit, so thank you very much. I really appreciate that. All right. Let's go over here to John. And again, we don't need any optics module. So we definitely have a horizon we need to straighten. So let me apply basic preset first. Let's just straighten the horizon. I'm just going to use the poles and the buildings to kind of add a perspective. Okay, good. Excuse me. All right, there we go. So all I need to do is really just kind of de-emphasize everything around this guy and then brighten him up a little bit, right? So maybe let's see if we can just AI select this motorcycle guy. We'll invert that. We'll just bring the exposure down a bit. About a third. Yeah, about a third. And a little bit of clear view. Okay. And let's select the road. See if it'll get the street. Yeah, that's good enough. Did a little bit too much. Let's try again. Let's do it this way. I'll do that, but let's make a submask. I don't want to include the sidewalks, so we'll just use this. See if we can get rid of it this way. Yeah, that's good. Don't have to be too precise. Okay, I just want to make the street a bit darker. Maybe not that much. All right, and then let's just accent some of the speculars on the motorcycle. Maybe same thing, a auto masking brush. We'll just kind of hit some of the shiny parts. Okay. Okay. How about these headlights? Okay. And this microphone. The logo here. Oops, kind of overshot a little bit. That's all right. I'll just use a little bit smaller one. Okay, let's back that off just a little bit. Let me just back it off a little bit there. A little bit here. All right, let's brighten his face a little bit and we're done. maybe his hands too. Let me do the hands separately. Just use auto masking. There we go. A little bit there too. Why not? And just a little bit of negative. And then a little bit extra here in the front. Just maybe a quarter. Third, yep, that looks good. A little bit on the tire. A little bit extra there and there. Okay. So pretty straightforward edit. Maybe just make it a little brighter. So that's the image on the left. So basically we just straighten the horizon and brighten up the officer and darken the background. That's all that needed. And then just a few touches on the speculars for the motorcycle. It could use a little bit of something here though. Maybe some just a little bit brighter. Yeah, there we go. All right, that's my edit. Pretty slick. I mean, pretty slick shot. I mean, it's really, I like seeing, you know, people working and doing their jobs in the photos. All right, let's see where we're at. We got, wow, we got quite a bit more to go here. Okay, I just need to take about a 1 minute break, a little potty break, and then I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back. Okay, let's see. We got one here from Tree. Let's see. So let's apply basic preset and straighten the horizon. I don't know if this angle was intentional or not, but I'm going to straighten it. Okay, I just like to eyeball it. The auto rarely gets it right when I click the auto, but okay, so I think this is a pretty warm image. 'Cause, these are the cherry blossoms. Uh, it's pretty good composition. I'm just going to come in just a little bit tighter here. I might even pull off some of that starburst. Okay. I think that's good there. So now we have this person front and center. We have a little bit more perceived space underneath this person. Okay, good. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Heather. Uh, so I'll just reset it. I'll start over. Basically, all I did was I can try the auto, but auto rarely works. So I'm just gonna just eyeball it and straighten it like so. Oh, first let me apply basic preset, and then we'll straighten it. And I'm just gonna eyeball it. And now it's a little bit too tight down here, and there's a gap over here. So that's why I'm going to crop it. So I want a little more space under here. And I don't really need the starburst in the frame. And I'm going to center this person best I can, like so. And we need a little bit more tilt. Okay. Now we just need to kind of brighten the people in the image and then bring out the warmer colors from the sun. And that's it, I think. So I've never tried to select people when there's a lot of people in there. Not bad. Can erase some of these other people though. Let me just put a negative brush in here. Don't need these guys. But let's go ahead and just brighten these people up. And just add a little bit of warmth. Not too much. There we go. Maybe just a tad more on this girl here. And I haven't touched the volume, but yeah, it did get low, didn't it? Hold on. Oh, I forgot to put the mic back on. Here we go. All right. Let's go. Okay, I think the people are good. See if we can temper these highlights a bit. I doubt it. I think they're kind of clipped already. But we can do a little bit. And then let's brighten up the bark on the trees. I'll just use a masking brush. It doesn't have to be too precise. We just need to kind of get generally in there. Too much. All right, that's fine. Just going to give a little push. Some micro contrast. And a little warmth. Okay, that's good. It might be a bit too much. Just back it off a little with the opacity. There we go. And then let's work on this area up in here, the flowers, the cherry blossoms. Maybe a control line. Just a very tight one here. We'll tighten up the chroma and the luma. Can maybe come in even a little tighter. Let's warm those up just a bit. Add some magenta in. I know the cherry blossoms were white, more white than pink, but I'm just going to add a little bit of pink in the white balance, like this magenta. And then let's just give it that and some micro contrast. A little bit more warmth. Let me start over on that white balance. Let's just add the warmth in. Just a tiny bit of magenta. Okay. And maybe some saturation. Because we can come down more because I was pretty selective. There we go. Oh, no, it's kind of affecting. Yeah, it's affecting her a bit. So let me add a submask and subtract that out. Maybe with a, need this flow up higher. That's good. And let's put a control point up here. Again, I'm going to select the brighter parts. Let's see if we can warm that up a bit. Okay. And then we'll just add some touches of warmth here and there. Because these control points are going to match the one I just made up here. See? It's the same mask. All right, I think that's it. Now, if you want to be more realistic, these cherry blossoms were a little bit whiter. They weren't as pink as I made them out to be here. But you know, the general idea of bringing up the shadows and warming everything up, I would do either way, but I just kind of took a little creative license there and made the cherry blossoms more pink. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, a little ladybug. I think this one, yeah, we don't need a preset or anything. Just need to come in a bit tighter. Maybe a little bit off center this time. And I cut off the leg a little bit. Let's go 3 by 2. Okay. I just feel like a little negative space, that's all. And then let's add some vibrancy. And then I'm just going to punch in and just check the fine details, and I think that's it. But I think we're good. Yeah, I used my high-res shot preset here. It's funny, I'm making a high-res shot preset for the high-res shot mode in OM Systems, but you know, since basically all I did was crank up the sharpening, but it works for this image. I might just temper the highlights a tiny bit here. So let me make a very tight mask on the chroma and luma. And just bring the highlights in a bit. And that's it. So that's the original on the left. Here's my edit. Basically a crop and saturation, right? So let's do a slider and just check the fine details here, right? But yeah, I think we got rid of all that softness and just brought in a lot of nice details that are in here. And I think, you know, front and center is good. You have to capture the image front and center for the focus stacking generally. And I don't think this was focus stacked, but then, you know, just doing a little off center for this, I think works well. This negative space works better over here than surrounding it. Okay, very good. Thank you, Tom. And let's go to, oh, Tom is here. Tom S1234. I guess that's you, right? Thanks for sending that one. All right, let's see. We have a long exposure. Well, no, it's 150 the second. These people are really blurry for 150. Oh, it's a high-res shot mode. I can see. It's got to be because of the, yeah, based on the resolution. Um, let's apply. Let me make sure I don't need a. Yeah, I need the optics module first. And let's try a perspective correction first. Okay. Let me apply my preset and then do the perspective. Now it kind of messed it up. So we need to fix the horizon. Maybe just going to manually adjust it. So again, this is just not having your sensor or camera perfectly parallel with the ground, basically. Like pitch, yaw, all of that. I'm going to have to get this, my vocabulary down for exactly what I mean. I'll do that for the next stream. I got to look up pitch, yaw, and the, the 3 axes, right? And really get in my mind which is which. So I can articulate a little better exactly what I mean. Let's try 16:9 first. Because with this image, I think we need to keep the event name here. But I'm not sure I got, let me see. I'm still a little bit off on the lines. So that's pretty close. It just feels off because of the angle. Let's try that. Okay. Then let's make the floor just a bit shinier. And a little bit darker. Okay, and then the image needs to be brighter overall. Let me just brighten it this way. Okay, good. Now maybe just a little vibrancy right there. And if it wasn't for this object here, I would crop these people out. I like just this one blur right here. Right here together with this this sign. But these people blurred here. I wonder if I can soften that a bit. Let me try and blur that. That kind of works. And then let's push. Make them a little bit brighter too. Give them a little more saturation. That kind of works. I don't want to blur too much, then it looks a little out of place. Okay, I think that's it. So, you know, the main thing with this image was just, for me, when I do architecture, I always try to get the line straight. And for this shot, I would have walked up a little closer to get this chair out of the frame. So walking forward a couple of steps, a little bit lower to get more of the floor so that I could carry this bright lines here more into the bottom of the frame. And then of course been more straight on. But I get it, you know, when things are happening, you don't have time to compose the shot exactly the way you want it, like I do at work, right? I can take all the time I need to straighten things, but this is one of those shots where you see a moment and you have to be fast and capture it. So I totally get why the geometry and everything it is the way it is. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying, generally speaking, with architecture, I'm always very conscious of the lines. But okay, that's my edit. Just basically a crop and make it brighter, and some contrast. All right, let's go to the next one. And this one is from Jeff. Oh, man, this one's tough. We've got some daffodils. Really strong highlights here in a trail. Not sure. It looks like it dips over to the right. There's a bench. So we're about a month away from this being amazing, right? This scene. Because everything's still kind of just starting to come out. So probably what I need to do, let's do a basic preset. I can see the brim of your cap up here, it looks like. We definitely need a horizon correction. I'm just going to use this bench as a guide. Of course, benches in the ground are never straight necessarily, but it's the only straight line in the image. And I think the intent here, you have this shadow bringing in, we need a crop of something here. Just less of everything would be good here. So let's do a control line and see if we can temper some of the highlights. Not too much. Not as much as I would have liked. And then let me just see a black and white. Oh, because there's just not enough color in the scene. So I might go black and white and just work with maybe just work with this one tree. Okay. Let's try. I doubt the AI tool will pick up that shadow, but let's try. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. So maybe let's do another control line. And we'll pick the dark part in here. And just make that shadow a little bit darker. I don't know if I need everything up here either. And then let's try. Oh, I think that's the best I can do there. Just eyeball the color again. Yeah, there's just not enough going on color-wise. I think this is it. All right, so yeah, I think in about a month this will be really nice. But right now there's just not enough going on in terms of like the fullness of this feeling like spring, even though there's a bunch of daffodils down here. So I just worked with this shadow, which may have been your original intent for this photo anyway. So I think this is the best way to go is work with this one part or this one element is this long shadow. Okay. That was a tough one, Jeff. Thanks. All right. Let's see. Let's see this one here. Some little chicks. Maybe a Canadian or Canada goose, Canada geese. I'm just guessing. I'm wondering, I mean, this has got to be the mother, right? Standing here. I like the colors though, this tealish blue in the background. Let me just make sure I got the optics module. Yep. All right, so let's apply basic preset. And just a little horizon correction. I'm not sure what to do about this. I think I'm going to try and... I wonder if I can brush that out. I can try. Not really. Yeah, that didn't... Photoshop would do a good job with this, but this is one area that Photolab is not really... It's not really mastered yet, is cloning out things. What if I do repair? Okay, that works. Good enough. I may come back to it, but what I want to do is let's make a little tighter chroma mask. And just cool this off a bit more. Make it more teal. And then a new control line for the chicks here. New mask, new control line. Select the brighter parts and just temper these highlights a bit. And maybe just warm it up a tiny bit. Okay. And then a little drop on the eyes. Just need just a tiny bit of brightening in here. God, that one is so cute. Just on each of the eyes over here. Okay, good. Back to this first one. Make that a little brighter. Go to that other mask, maybe. Push these up a bit. They're Egyptian geese. Okay, and Jeff says it was about the shadow. Okay, good. And oh, Eric's dropped in. Hey, Eric. I think that's it. And then fine detail wise, I think we're good. So let's do side by side. Against the... All right, so here's the original. So I just wanted to bring out sort of this teal color in the background. And then I brushed this out. I just did a sloppy job here. But sometimes it is really hard to get things out like this. But it seemed to work out okay here. And then warmed up the Egyptian geese. And brightened the eyes a tiny bit. But I think that's all this image needed, was just mainly get rid of this. Okay, very good. Thank you for that one. Never seen Egyptian geese before. And let's go to, oh, that's an edited image. Let's look at the raw. Okay, I'll probably do something very similar. Like a square crop, I think works here. Just come up a little bit and just even out the spacing. Let's do smart lighting. No. I wonder if I start here, whoops. If I can get that cone. Did I apply my preset yet? I did, okay. So what we need is a little bit more shadow. And let's crank up the vibrancy. Okay. And micro contrast. A little bit of clear view. And then let's just duplicate this mask and move it up here. All right, move up here. All right, good. And we'll invert it. And then let's just darken this area around and cool it off a bit. And let's just add a vignette. Okay, and then and I already saw Shacabe, so I'm just going to do the same thing he did and just add, I don't know, I think you need film pack to do this too. But I'm just going to add a white border. Oh, I can't. This is a glitch, a bug I need to report. It's not showing the border. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Oh, I have to be out of the local adjustment, but we can add a frame. I like this grunge. Which one was it? One of these. Yeah, I like that one. Okay. So there's the original, and there's my edit. I think that came out nice. Aside from, you know, adding that grungy border to it. And we can compare that to Shacabe's real quick since he sent it in. Let's do use image as reference. So here's Shacabe's edit. This is my edit. So yeah, I think the key difference here really is, you know, I darkened the area around and cooled it off. So I created a little more separation in terms of the chroma or color. But the overall idea, and he went with a 3x2. I thought he went with a square. I just went with a square crop. I think it works for this. But yeah, very nice edit. Very nice edit there, Shacabe. I always like your white borders on yours. I decided to try something different. Okay, and then the next one is, oh yeah, this is your edit, right? I don't have the ones from last week anymore, so I wouldn't be able to compare it. I think the difference here, if I recall, the big difference here is the crop. I kept the right side with the bicycles and headlights going onto the wall. And I don't think I brightened up the background quite as much. I did a little more light painting and separating. But this is a nice edit. This is very clean. You know, you can just see everything going on, and it still kind of has that mood, right? That that this area gives. It gives off a very, I don't know, kind of a young but vintage kind of feel to it at the same time. And it's very, very clean edit. Okay. Man, did I finish all those? Man, took me 3 hours today. That's cool. That was awesome. Lots of great photos today to work on and lots of interesting ones. Uh, you know, in terms of how I approach it. But I hope you guys like the edits I did and got a feel for the workflow and the tools that are available in DxO, as always. That's why I do these. And and it's great to come together again as a community and just talk about photography for a couple hours, right? Even though in this case we're talking about editing, but editing is just as important a part of photography as taking the photograph for many of us, right? It's a 50-50, right? Go out, we spend a lot of time capturing the image, whatever that might be, and then we come back and we edit. And for some, it's all about the photography and no editing, right? And then for others, it's kind of like it's a balance. And then others, it's just a little touch up, right? Just straightening, a little brightening, and that's it. But I'm more of a 50-50 guy lately, right? I like to spend as much time working on my craft and capturing the image as I do editing and post. Uh, because the tools are so powerful now, you can do so much with the editing, and it really is part of your creative output, right? So you guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I will be back. I might not be back this Sunday. I got some family things I might do. So, it's Easter, right? I think. So I'm not 100% sure about this Sunday, but I will be back uh, most likely Tuesday for the shopping stream and then another editing stream Friday. I'll try and do a regular photo chat stream, but I'm not sure when. But either way, you guys have a great weekend. Happy Easter. Thanks again for joining.